I am Sahil, currently working as an iOS engineer in Tata 1MG. Today, me and my team are going to talk about design language system and backend-driven UI. So you might have heard this term DLS before, and the simple question might be coming to your mind: what is it? Does your organization need it? How to make it effective? What are the key components of the DLS and the backend-driven UI? So today we are going to discuss about them in details. What is the reason that you should start DLS in your projects? What is the DLS standardizations? How to construct any components using DLS? And what are the key components of the DLS? In the next part of the presentation would be the backend driven UI. Okay, so let's first talk about the what is the DLS and so DLS is nothing but it's a framework that combines some set of reusable components, standards, and documentation. So every company that is using DLS has some its own standards, documentation, and they follow some guidelines and the rules to construct any kind of widgets. So DLS help us to provide consistency in any products, and also with the help of DLS we can improve productivity of our products. To understand this system, let's look at one example. Here we use many reusable components in our app which we call widgets. So one such example of this widget is our vertical pickling, which is shown in this image. A widget can be a master widget and it has many versions. Suppose on one screen we are showing this widget, on the another screen we maybe show the different version of the same widget. So according to the JSON we are getting from the API, we can show different versions of the same widget to the users, or ideally it's a single widget. So some of the items in this widget may be toggleable. For example, here you can see there is a two label, one collection view. In the collection view, we have four big cards and the four small cards. So if we have any requirements from the backend, like we want to show only two big cards, so we can easily change the JSON response from backend and it will render in our app. In design language system, basically we follow the single source of truth. So it really helps us to create components, or we can say designs across the platforms, or it's very consistent. And DLS basically follow the single source of the truth. The designers, code, documentation all follow the some set of rules that we are defined, and it's really helps design team to scale UI language and streamline the UX guidelines. So why it is important? So why we should follow the single source of truth? Because if no guidelines or defined, it can create inconsistency across the platform. So DLS help us to grow and scale our UI across the platform. Suppose now we have a many platform like Android, iOS, and web, and we want UI to be same across the platform. So it's very important all the designers, developers follow the single source of truth. It really help us to create, grow, and scale our UI on different platforms. Why should we use DLS? So what are the advantages of the DLS? Why you should company should follow or start using or creating components using DLS? So when different minds come together, there can be several inconsistencies in principle, designs, ideas, and selection of components that can consume time. So using DLS, it's a very efficient way to develop and design a profitable product to solve this problem. Let's talk about some of its major advantages. Although it had so many advantages, but here we will discuss about some of the major ones. So the first one is a customer experience. So various brands forgot to focus on the end user experience. So focusing more on profit instead of customer satisfaction will not attract customers. Having a better understanding of users and help organization to associate user with them for a longer period of time. So if a user is using your apps, for example, it's using on the Android, and then later the user also has a iOS device. So for user experience, it's very important if we create a same kind of experience across the platform. The second important point is a brand identity and authenticity. So if our design is unique on different platforms, or it's unified, so it really helps us to stand our product from the crowd. And the last point is here is efficiency in costs. DLS really help us to save cost of any product. For example, designer is working on something. So now designer have to make a different design for iOS, Android, and web. So now what a designer can do, designer can focus on the right user experience and make UI more meaningful. And the iterations would be less. Suppose product manager comes to us and asks the designer to change this in iOS. So now designer doesn't have to worry about this. Designer simply can focus on the right user experience. It has a designer create only one widget, which will show on the different platforms. So the same widget would be shown on the iOS, same widget would be shown on the Android, and the same widget will be shown on the MWeb. And from developer perspective, so we would create a reusable components that can be used on different screens. Or maybe if we are working in we have a different project, so we can create a library of that widgets and use them into the another project. Or we can say have different verticals. Suppose many big companies have divided their products into the different verticals. So sometimes it's very common that the another vertical team are follow some another rules or guidelines. So DLS really help us to focus on the right user experience. So with the help of DLS, we can save our costs and it's become very efficient. Next slide is about DLS standardization, how we can create. So it's nothing but just some set of rules and guidelines. So every company may create their own guidelines and rules according to their requirements. Suppose in DLS standardization, basically what we does, we standardize the basic elements like colors, typography, sizing, spacing. So how should we follow or create an widget using standardization? Let's first understand the construction of the vertical pathings, which we have shown in the previous slide. So here, what we have done, we have used the grid layout where we have divided the complete screen into the 12 columns, and the width of the column is used to build the widgets. Okay, so depending on the requirements, some views can take 6 columns, some views can take 3 columns, and some views even can take 7, 8 columns. That's totally depends on your requirement. Here, as you can see in this image, we have there highlighted pink line, that is a columns. Okay, so we divided into the 12 columns. So the spacing between the columns is it's called gutter. So like you want to give a 8 spacing between the columns. So we call them gutter. And we also from the leading or trailing, we also give the padding to the widget. According to this, we create any class. So we will show that in the demo. So how you can create DLS, or maybe if your requirement is different, you can change that file accordingly. In this, like for example, we have divided our screen into the 12 columns. So this is all about the DLS standardization. So also, like if we talk about fonts and typography, that we can also define. Like if the company wants to use some specific fonts, so that he company can define. So in different verticals, we just follow that rules or guidelines. We should only use this, and these components are reusable. We can use it anywhere if we are want to in different verticals on different projects. Design should be very consistent across the platforms. The same rules are following by the other teams as well. So it's very consistent and very flexible, and we can easily scale. If suppose we have a new requirement, support, so we simply want to add some more widgets. So the designer also have the idea. So how we can create new widgets, and the designer left the job and the new designer comes. We already defined some set of rules, so designer can follow and create the new widgets accordingly. So there are so many companies that are using a DLS, so design language system. So they have defined their own some set of rules and guidelines. Some of the major ones are like Atlassian, Airbnb, Gojek, Agoda, Spotify. So they all are using design language system. So I have mentioned the links of the some of the companies in the next slide. You can check these links later. Okay, so this is all about the design language system. We will discuss about the backend driven UI. What exactly is it? So let's first understand the problem. So what is exactly is the problem? So why should we use the backend driven UI? Suppose in iOS, on home screen, currently we are showing 10 widgets that we have created using DLS. So now the product manager comes to you and asks to add one more widget to the home screen. So it's a very lengthy process. First, the designer have to make a design for. Second, completing the design, you have to develop that design. After developing, the QA will test it, and we will after all the sanity, we will upload the build to the App Store, and Apple also might take 24 to 40 hours to approve your build. So it's a very lengthy process. We just simply want what we want on the home screen. If we simply want to add some widget, so we can simply change the API response, and it should automatically reflect to the home screen. So this is the major advantage that we should use. There are so many advantages of backend-driven UI, but first we will discuss this one. So using this, our help app become the dynamic. So one more example I can give you. So like suppose type of user, suppose one is a normal user and another is a premium user. So now you want to show different widgets to the premium user. You want to add some more functionality to the premium user. So what we have to do, we can create simple widgets using DLS, and on the backend side, we can change the response. So if the user is a premium user, the different version of the widget will shown to the premium user. This is the example, so we can use. And there are so many benefits of the backend driven UI. Suppose we do not have to upload a new build every time we want to add some new features. We can previously define all the things that we want that may or become in the future. We can also add a middle layer to the on the backend side. Suppose on the home screen we are hitting or calling the multiple APIs, or that is we are getting data from the backend. So what we can do, we can on the backend side we can add a middle layer, which what we that will do, it will give response in only one API. So we do not have to call multiple APIs. We can get all the data in the single API, and minimal logic on the app side. So we do not have to worry about what we'll have to show, what we don't have to show, and like major logic would be on the backend side. So localization become very easy. Suppose we are using multiple languages in our project. Suppose we are using Hindi, English, Marathi, Tamil. So now we have to add the so many localization at our end, right? We create a multiple localizable files to add localization. So using backend driven UI, we can simply change our localization from the backend and it will render to the user. The logic on the app side would be very minimal. So we can also handling the dynamic button handling. Suppose now user, we have rendered all the data on the home screen. Now we want to go to from one screen to another screen. So how would we do it? So we can simply add some links, maybe called first deep links. So on tapping of any button, we can like for example on the one CTA or button, we can say this is a search screen. Okay, so we would get a deep link from the backend. This is a search screen. So whenever we tap that button, it will check if we already registered that deep link into our app. If it's registered in our app, that will open on the we will open the search screen. So dynamic transitions, or you can say dynamic button handling, would be become very easy using backend driven UI. We can add analytics or using backend driven UI. And suppose we are using the multiple analytics in our project. So now what we want simply whatever data we get from the backend for that particular widget, we will simply send that data to the analytics, whatever we are using, if we are using any analytics framework in our project. So it's very easy to maintain. So because on app side, we do not have to worry about anything. We would simply create some events, and on using data, we can simply render all the widgets on our app. In the next, we will show a demo. So how exactly we can do is, so in this example, we have multiple JSON response that we have stored at our app site. According to the JSON, the UI would reflect on the app. Sankalp, can you proceed further?
Hi everyone, I'm Sankal. Let me just open and demonstrate the project. So basically our goal here is to change the UI based on the backend. And to show that, what we have done here is we have created a UI, and with that we have created 3 widgets. Basically, the data in the widget is controlled by the JSON, and what widget we have to show is also controlled by the backend. Like for example, let's say we have 3 widgets here, as you can see. Let's say we need 10 of these widgets. So what we do, and none of these. So what we do, we just simply change the backend. We send 10 of these widgets in the backend, and the UI changes automatically according to it. So this is what we have shown here. And directly in the code, we have just simply three for the backend. We have just created static data for now, and we have three JSON files which simply dictate how our app will be visible here. Let's say the code is very basic. We have just created a simple UI which just creates the widgets according to the data which is present there. Sahil, do you want to continue or explain anything in that?
Yes. So here we have a controller. So in the controller, we are simply reading the data from our JSON file. So can you please show the data one? So
Sure.
here some of the widgets that we have defined in this JSON file, and some of the widgets are different from the data one in the data to JSON file. So whenever we get the data from the API response, we simply pass that data into our models, or we can say view models, and ask the adapter to render those widgets according to the types that we have defined. So here we have three widget types. Can you scroll to the top, Sankar?
To the top.
Yeah. So here we have a three widgets. Like for example, we have a horizontal widget, we have a simple widget, and we have a other widgets. So we can add n number of widgets to the widget type that according to our requirements. So if we get a type horizontal from the backend, so we will simply create a horizontal or show the horizontal widget to the user. The horizontal widget can also has a different version. Suppose it may have many subtypes, like horizontal widget subtypes can be like A, B, C. It can be many type of versions. So we would simply give the response to the adapter, and adapter show the widgets according to the JSON. Can you go to the simulator? So here you can see like we have only three widgets, three different kind of widgets here. First widget is a horizontal scrollable widget. The second widget is a simple widget which has only one image, two labels, and one button. And the third one is a vertical widget. So in this example, the data is totally controlled by the backend. Suppose now we have changed the data from the backend. So can you tap to the two? So now we have changed the data from the backend. So it will like reflect this UI to the user. Again, like product manager comes to you want to change this requirement and want to show some more widgets to use. And we have already integrated that widget into our project. We can simply change the backend response and it will automatically reflect the UI to the user. So one more thing that we can show, can you please open the grid and gutter class? So this is an example that we were talking about, the grid and gutter class, that the grid system that we can use. So what exactly we have done here, we divided our screen into the 12 parts, excluding padding. So whenever the user want to use, like for example, he wants to create any view for which has a width of the column 3, so we can directly use grid and gutter column 3 width. Also we can do one more thing, we can directly use the constraints, create subclass of the constraints and use directly columns with in our class. Can you Sankal, go to the adapter of any collection that where we are using this?
Oh yeah, sure.
Buttons.
So
Like suppose here we are using a compositional layout, collection layout. So here we have defined our collection layout side size should be of a column forward. So according to the requirement that has defined in the Figma, so we can create widgets accordingly. We just have to follow that guidelines. So whatever that defined in the Figma, we can follow that. So according to these columns we can create, I mean according to that requirement we can create any views of any columns type. So this is all about the backend driven UI. Manav, Bankim, would you like to add some more points here?
Let us just show the demo of how we create the subclasses of constraints as well.
So this is the basic idea to how we can use DLS and how we can combine DLS and backend driven UI to create scalable products, and how it will help you to save your cost, and it will how effectively you can create any number of applications across the platform. Here we can also create like if you simply want to like create a these constraint to the in the storyboard. So we can directly assign that column 1 in the storyboard. Suppose we have a one view that would take a width of the column 1. So we can directly assign column width to the any view. So that's totally depends on the requirement. So how do we want to proceed with your projects? The requirements can be vary from organization to organization. So that's totally depend. Okay, Mana, would you like to add some more points here?
Let's start the question and answer session. If someone has wants to know something more or want to dive deep into it.
Hello, Sahil. Actually, I have shared in chat regarding us. Suppose if we are adding a new component, like if you can just open up the simulator, so I can just guide you the scenario. Yeah. Suppose if we have this simple view widget, if we are adding some new component, similarly some simple view widget here, but in that case, while tap on that widget, we want to open some new screen, some different screen that is not designed in the previous build that we have already uploaded. So in that case, I think we would have to upload a new build, correct? With the new. Okay, so in that case, we will not be able to edit dynamically from the backend.
So Sanket, we do have one backup for that as well. So like as you have understood that all the platforms will be having same design, right? So now like for apps, we have to upload a new release for new widgets, right? But the web is completely dynamic. So say suppose for older versions of app, if we do not have handling for any screen, so in that case, we can open the deep link of a web page as well. So that page will be handling the new UIs as well. So that is sort of a backup for the older versions of app. Anyways, for the new versions of app, we will have better experience with releasing the new version of the widget.
So it means I think in deep link, as far as I know, we have to add we have to update it. We have to add the link before and that should be uploaded. Then only it will be working, correct?
Yes. But for that, for web views, we have a separate controller which can handle any set of URLs passed to that as a parameter.
So we do not have to release a new app for that. If we do not have that particular screen in our app, so we will simply open the web view to the user. Do not have to handle that deep link. So basically it would be a URL from the backend side.
We agree that that won't be the optimized way of doing it, but for the older version of that app,
we can manage it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So basic check, we have some basic check, like we check up the domain, are we serving that or not? And then we are opening that thing.
Yeah, I think I'm done with my queries.
So anyone else has any questions? So feel free to ask.
Hello? Yes, Mavis, you are audible. You can ask a question.
My question is how we pass the data into this one. Like every button click, we are using the deep linking to move to another one screen. If I have like 4 screens, sometimes it happens like into the e-commerce application, I have to hit the API or at the 4th screen. Like I select some content into a starting product and product type of flavor, then I have to hit the API into which the navigation happen, and up to the 4th screen, I have to take the data from 1st screen to 4th screen. Then how can we manage that one? Like the data passing into this one.
So I think let's say let's take your example. Let's say we are seeing this move wala widget. So in the move widget, this is kind of a product which would be having some product ID. And if I have to show up the product detail for this move, this product, then the deep linking would be like /products/ID. And then taking up the query params or the deep linking from the data from the deep linking, we can use that ID as the data for loading up the next product description screen.
Okay. And if some data is like I want to pass, like I have 3 types of moves: small, medium, and large sizes. And I have one product ID. I want to add like I ask like MD user which one move he select, like medium size or like a small tube size, like maybe different gram. then we have to, then I can also pass the data from the our side to the backend, like a user selection. The deep link is created from the my side. I think the deep linking is mostly created from the backend side. Like if I have a three products, like 10 gram, 50 gram, or 100 grams more, and if a user will click on 100 gram, then the different ID will go to the backend. Yes.
Yeah, but the product ID would be different for all the three. Those
Okay,
would not
like
be having the same, na?
okay, like we have to manage the backend from also. Like it happens from
Yes,
my
yes.
side that we have the same product ID, but there is a variant ID we follow.
Name.
And also,
But again,
also
then the backend
yes.
has to design itself in that way. Because let's say if you are adding something onto your cart, let's say move would be having 50 gram pack, 100 gram pack, 150 gram pack. So these
Okay.
three are the different products. They do not
Okay.
correspond to the same product, because those would be having different cost or different prices and other things. And also there would be a lot of things going on to the backend, like for the first time users, there would be kind of a different kind of discount or other widgets which you
Yes,
would be
yes.
showing. So that would be passed to you from the backend,
Okay. Okay,
and
got
then
it.
you can show that onto the screen. Yeah.
And also, is there like any limit of the dynamic linking to get the data from the server? Like from the dynamic linking, like right from we are passing the product ID, and how many parameters I can get into dynamic linking?
So for that, there is no restriction as such, except the restriction which is a normal HTTP URL restriction. But in case, say, suppose your payload is a bit large, in that case, you can also use the encoding as well, and encoding the parameters in a single parameter, and then encoding the parameters will automatically compress the size of the parameter. So in that case, that can also work.
Also, the one more thing, like from the way that I got the more references, like if I want to understand this pattern more better than from to put any YouTuber or any type of document, more with from.
So there are four slides from four links from the Atlassian and Gojek, how they have implemented. There is also one good video you can find on the YouTube about BLS. That is a good talk to listen to. So you can look up on that. But those are kind of a that is kind of a how you can move on to the DLS thinking. How can you think in a DLS way, not much more looking onto the iOS perspective only?
Yes, you are audible. Please ask Pratap.
So, there is one question in my mind. So, I was reviewing your code. So, according to you, what you have done, you have just defined three kind of design, right? And please correct me if I'm wrong. That is simple and other and grid, right? So, what I'm thinking according to your code or according to backend-driven UI, I don't have that much knowledge. So, you have already predefined designs. What you are doing from backend, you are sending just some kind of type. There might be a key of type. If it is grid, then you are reloading or you are loading your grid cell, right? If it is other, you are loading your other type of cell. So according to me, I think if there will be 10 different kind of designs, for example, then you will have to design those 10 designs in your code. But what you are doing, you are just performing some checks. Nothing, I think, according to me, like from backend, you will have a key type, and from that key, you can perform some checks. But you have already predefined code, predefined designs and layouts for those 10 designs, right? But what I think, I might be wrong. Backend driven UI should be like that. You don't have any code. You should have some generic method. Okay, create some table view. Okay, like you might have seen Swiggy app, for example. Let me give you an example. For example, if suppose we do have 15 August tomorrow, so they don't update their app, right? And you can see different kind of animations, different kind of things according to festivals or according to whatever the successful like we are having. We don't need to update that. So here you already have some design predefined, but how can you say that it is a backend driven UI? You are just sending some type from backend, and on the like you have some enum, and I think you are performing. Okay, if it is a grid, then okay, reload grid cell because you have already predefined grid cell. So my question is that it is really backend driven UI is like that you have just shown us, or it should be like that. Okay, I don't have any predefined design from backend. I am saying okay, just create a kind of collection, you create a kind of grid layout and create a cell. I have some generic methods or generic kind of classes or delegates or data source which will be performed by the backend, and but I will not have predefined designs. I hope you got my question. So this is my question, because I don't think that it should be like that, because if I do have 10 design, 15 types of design, I will have to predefine them in my code as you like showed us, and we will have some checks. Only we are just performing here some checks. So I have just like concern here, like it is really backend driven UI or like it is something else.
So Pratap, we do have done prototyping for that as well, but on the client side of the app, we are not using that much really, because that much dynamic kind of UI is not required on the client side of the app. But on the web and for the, you can say, the portals which are used by the operations team or by the doctors for uploading the data, there we are using the better version of this backend driven UI. So we have that prototypes where backend defines that this is the layout, image, then label, then text field. In that way, we have that prototype.
Okay.
But for the customer facing app, we do not have that much flexibility, because we generally do not exercise that much of backend driven UI in that case.
Okay, thank you. This was just my question. So I was thinking if we can do like that, because I have seen this many times, and I have also done this kind of backend driven UI. We used to say this hyper local. We were making a product of our company, and same thing that you have shown us. Like we had some kind of different UIs, grid layout, list layout, and other. We were just sending from backend. Okay, if type is this, then reload this cell. But that was my personal question, because if this is a backend driven UI, I don't think that should be a proper backend driven UI, because you have already predefined some things and which are not dynamic even, but you are just performing some if else check. But according to me, what should be backend driven UI? Like as you said, we already have prototype. That should be like proper backend driven UI. Okay, you don't have anything. You have some generic classes, generic methods which will perform things, and which will you get from backend. Okay, create something this, and you will create that layout. And like I gave you the example of Swiggy or Zomato there. Yeah.
To answer your question, basically, अगर आप देखोगे, when you are making your UI imperatively rather than declaratively, then you cannot use the server, server driven. Let's say take the example of Android. So they have Jetpack Compose. Take the example of Airbnb. They have something like Epoxy. I think Epoxy is the name. So those are declarative UI. So if you are trying to develop declarative UI, then you can do it. Swift UI is still in progress. So I think once it comes up on a good stage, we can use that kind of also design. But for now, if you are using imperative UI, I think you have to resort to some third-party tool, third-party declarative UI building tool. Then only you can have that.
Okay, got it. Point. Thank you.
Yuvraj, you were having some question.
Yeah. So it was good talk. So one question I had was like, are you using any third party like a library, or it's your like an inbuilt like company build, your own build framework? And second question was like app wise, right? How much percent of the app you are like driving through this framework, basically dynamically? Yeah, basically I will like tell you is like if there is one screen I have to add, right? You have to release app or not, or you can normally you can like drive it from the backend driven UI, but like for some specific use case you have to create screen natively.
So for now, widgets are so we are developing widgets which are stored in a library. We have a library for all of the widgets. So if we want to add a new UI, we do not have to release the app. So that can be taken care if the widgets are present in the library. To answer the first question, so we are not using any third party, nothing. So everything is from the UI kit and the other libraries provided by.
Yeah, so more it was like onto the framework side, like this backend driven like framework you have created, right? So it is inbuilt, basically created from the inside the company, right? Not using any libraries available like Airbnb have
Yes.
one and all, right?
Yes. So we are not using anything.
Second question was like, how much of your app is currently like backend driven UI? You are achieving like everything using the backend driven UI, screen wise or functionality wise, like whatever you have in the app, like what percentage you have achieved?
So most of the part of our app in the DLS. So some of the part are not into the DLS, but we are making that also into the.
So I have one query related to that only. So suppose if we are going to add something like sign up screen, so I think that cannot be done, correct, using DLS. That should be the normal way which we design.
So one thing that we understand here. So everything we have created in the DLS. So we have divided into the widgets. So whenever we create something, suppose we are creating a new login or sign up screen. If it has a login and sign up widgets, so we have also divided that part to the widgets. So if we have that already have that widget, so we can simply create that screen. So if that widget doesn't exist at our end, and that is totally a new requirement. So in that case, yeah, we have to release a new version of that. But like I have mentioned earlier, like we have decided all the requirements and the may or be in the future. For example, a master widget can have a multiple versions. For example, like you can see here in the second widget, simple widget. It's a very simple widget. So, but like suppose we want to add some the survey to this widget, so we can simply add the survey widget and you use this widget.
Okay,
so to add to this, there are a lot of now third-party login systems, sign-in systems, which you can incorporate. So those also can be handled from the backend. To go on to more larger perspective, let's say we have a payment system at the end where we can configure. Let's say some of the payment system are down and we do not want them to show to the user, like Paytm is down, and we do not want to show the Paytm option to the user. That are controlled by the backend. Then the UI would come accordingly. Let's take it to another payment.
One more thing regarding, suppose as I asked regarding sign up screen, correct? I just have a query in that. Suppose we have taken username, mobile number, and suppose email address. These things we have already added, and that is when we click on sign up button, then those three details of the users is passed to the API from the using API. We are passing to the backend, and user is registered. But suppose if we want to add something like date of birth also of the user in the sign up screen, by updating the JSON from the backend, we will add that UI, correct, in the sign up screen. But how we will add like the data of the date of birth will be passed to the sign up API? How we can manage it?
Yeah. So for example, like for this we have a dynamic forms. Like we have a simple screen, like okay, and now on that screen we are getting multiple. You had divided that. So for one text field we have created widget. Okay, so we have created multiple widget, and suppose you have added any another type, so we can simply handle at this our end. So that won't be a problem. So we do not have to release
Sorry,
any for that.
I think your voice just break. I didn't get it. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so what I'm saying, so we can create a dynamic form for this. So for example, if you want to use the 4 text field and 2 but radio buttons and 1 date of birth picker, so we can simply send that data from the API and we can handle that data on our app side. Form will populate according to the JSON that we are getting.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. I think I'm done with my queries. And one more thing, if you are going to share your demo project, then I will queries, then I will share in the group. Discord channel.
Sure, definitely.
Yes.
This is
Thank
a very
you.
basic version of the demo. So there are so many things that we can add to the backend driven UI. So we have shown only the basic example. So how you can start. So according to your requirements now, so you can change in this project.
Okay, Sahil. So we are moving towards wrap. So we are going to take this one last question. This one is from Vitesh More. And he asked, how do you handle form submission in a dynamic page? Like, how are the text field connected to a particular submit button in this dynamic context? And there is one more question, which I'll ask after your answer. This is the last one. Did you get the question?
Can you repeat? How do you handle form submission in a form?
Yes, that's what we asked. How do you handle form submission in a dynamic page? How are the text field connected to a particular submit button in this dynamic context? Vitesh, if you are here, you can ask yourself if you want.
अभी आपने जो एग्जांपल दिखाया उसमें तो हम लोग सिर्फ कार्ड्स दिखा रहे और बटन्स है ना उसमें, तो अभी समझो हम लोग को यूजर से कुछ डेटा लेना है, तो 2-3 टेक्स्ट फील्ड है और उसके नीचे एक बटन है। तो अभी ये पूरे डायनेमिक पेज में इसका तो एक जेसन रहेगा, राइट? वो कैसे हैंडल रहेगा कि ये जो टेक्स्ट हम लोग एंटर कर रहे हैं वो सिर्फ यही बटन, ये मतलब ये बटन के प्रेस पे सर्वर रिस्पॉन्स जाना चाहिए और लाइक ये अपडेट होना चाहिए, यूआई
वैलिडेट होगा ऐसे।
हाँ, वैलिडेट होके सबमिट।
So Vitesh, in that case, what we can do is, say suppose you want to add 5 text fields, right? So what backend would do is backend will send you 5 widgets which are of type text field, and along with that data they will send us the regex for the validation for each text field. So once that user fills all that, on the click of submit button, we'll perform the regex check for each and individual text fields. Once that is done, the submit button will hit the API with the data filled in those particular text field.
One more thing you can do here, we do not want to use 5 different widgets, so simply like text field and button. So we can create a single widget. अगर एक widget है हमारे पास and we are getting some data, so in that widget we are getting like 5 text field data and 2 buttons and one date picker. So and also in that data we are also getting the regex. So उसके लिए हम एक अलग स्पेसिफिक विजिट क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, सो वो उस डेटा के अकॉर्डिंग मैनेज हो जाएगा और उसको हम वैलिडेट करके अपने एंड पे हैंडल कर सकते हैं।
सेकंड क्वेश्चन लाइक ये था कि हम लोग कैसे डिसाइड करते हैं कि कौन सा मॉड्यूल स्टैटिक रहेगा, मतलब जैसा रहता है, और कौन सा डायनेमिक?
So that's a complete decision by the product side. Say suppose it's a page where you will always take phone number and OTP. So in that case, we have a complete clarity that this will always remain this like this only. So in that case, it would be sort of a static case. But say suppose if there's a page where we take address from the user, okay. So in that case, maybe right now the scenario is we take pin code, state, city, that kind of things. But in future we have a visibility that in future either we can take whether the address is a home type address or work type address in that case, or maybe in future we will be taking lat long or something. So in that case we have a sort of clarity that fields can be added or removed. So in that case we decide that it's going to be a dynamic sort of page. So that's how we decide for the page basis, or you can say case basis.
I would like to thank Tata team for this great session and discussion and for handling all the questions here. And I would like to thank everyone who joined and put forward their questions. If you have any further queries, we will be able to handle them on Discord. The code and video will be available on the channel, and link will be provided on Discord as well. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. You can also direct message us if you want to, you have any specific query.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.